What's up, Thrashers, and welcome back once again to the Thrash Maniac 99 YouTube channel. And I am back with another album review for you guys, and today I am talking about the long-awaited sophomore offering from Death Doom stalwarts, upstarts, what have you, Spectral Voice with SPARAGMOS. I probably butchered that, but I'm not going to go back to figure out how to pronounce it again. SPARAGMOS, whatever. So this comes out also on February 9th on Dark Descent Records, and like I said, this is their second album, first one in 7 years after their debut album, which I forget the title of it off the top of my head, and I haven't checked it out yet. But I got into hearing about this band courtesy of, well, another band, Blood Incantation, considering 3/4 of Spectral Voice are members of Blood Incantation. Morris, Paul, and Jeff all are in this band, and this, like I said, is a Death Doom project with these guys from Blood Incantation, as well as Eli, who's the vocalist and drummer on this album. And, well, put it at its simplest, this is some bleak, dark, oppressive death doom that has some funeral doom touches to it. Arthur Risk is the producer on this album. Again, Arthur Risk is just added with just being the crazy producer extraordinaire. Just, I think last year might have been his busiest year by far, because I feel like maybe a quarter of the albums I talked about last year, Arthur Risk had something to do with it. Speaking of Arthur Risk, please make a new Eternal Champion album this year. That would be awesome, but I digress. So, how about this album? Well, like I said, bleak, dark, oppressive, and I will say, like, the production, like, Arthur's production, makes it everything sound audible, but still retaining a raw, nasty, gritty atmosphere all throughout. And that's really the big thing about this album. It's just oppressive, dark, gritty, and just evil sounding. Kicking things off with Be Cadaver, you get these like eerie clean guitars that almost give off more of that like funeral doom vibe that you're going to get in certain spots on this album. And then you get into these big oppressive doom riffs, and all these doomy riffs that come up here are just slow. They know how to like drag it out to like really make you feel uncomfortable to some extent. And then even the bass on this album does a good job at providing more to that atmosphere. And even here on this opening track, the drums do occasionally pick up, like in the fills, pick up tempo, but it still remains doomy. And then suddenly out of nowhere, we get nasty tremolo riffs and black metal blast beats to like start to pick up in the speed department, and it does speed up quite a bit on pretty much every single track in spots. And starting here, you just immediately get into high octane evil darkness with these blasts and tremolo riffs. And then one band I definitely get a lot of nods to in terms of like whenever it gets a little bit groovy and a little bit more up-tempo within the doom, Hooded Menace. There are lots of nods to Hooded Menace on this album, whether it be in the melodies or in the groovy department, whenever it does get a little bit more up-tempo, but still not like mid-tempo, but more like up-tempo in terms of like doom, more like Hooded Menace. And there's even some like really creepy chants and spoken word that comes up in here. And then one thing that does stand out about this album is sometimes, especially here on this opening track, you start off with those eerie clean guitars, and then they'll end it with these eerie clean guitars on this track. And then in other songs on this album, I mean, there's only 4 tracks, but this whole album's like the first 2 tracks, 11 minutes, 13 minutes, and then the third one being just a hair over 7.5, and the closer being close to 13, but I digress. Now, the way Be Cadaver ends with the drums leads perfectly into the next track, Red Feast Condensed into One. Like, perfect, like, lead-in to the song, and it just immediately gets apocalyptic, blasty tremolos, very much like Incantation. And Incantation is another band I get lots of nods to, especially whenever it gets to those blast beats and tremolos. Very Incantation inspired. And then it gets doomy again before you get more black metal tremolos. And there's some occasional black metal moments that pop up on this album too. Now you get some really cool doomy breakdowns a la Autopsy to some extent. And then out of nowhere, some like almost sci-fi and ambience and chimes that made me think of Time Ghoul, which, of course, Blood Incantation and those guys who are also in Spectral Voice, big fans of Time Ghoul. Then you get this like really cool standout clean guitar part that leads into a double time stomp, which pretty much for the remainder of this album you'll get one, maybe two sections of some double time stomps. And then you even get a lead, which I think here on Red Feast Condensed into One might be the only song where you get like a true blues solo. Whereas everything else, it's just all about the riffs and the atmosphere. And then suddenly screams of agony, like as if Eli is stuck in a cave and he's just pleading to just get the fuck out. And I will say Eli's vocals are very strong on here. Like they're more on the raspy side, almost like a more cavernous John Tardy is kind of what I get when it comes to his more raspy vocals, but his low guttural roars are very strong too, and his like big, almost black metal screams like here are pretty strong in its own right, or in their own right. Then you get a more catchy doom riff towards the end that again brings back that Hooded Menace vibe, and it's even a little more melodic. Then we get into Sinu's Censor, almost somber clean guitars to start off with, before you get like a double time stomp but with like melodic progressions. More black metal tremolos and blast beats come in. Then it gets really into like funeral doom for a couple of moments of like, let's just settle down, get atmospheric, and like feel like we're witnessing a funeral right now, before you get these like cool sinister melodies. And then it gets into this excellent build to a really cool groove before you get more death metal tremolos again, like Incantation. Then to the closing track, Death's Knell Rings in Eternity. Pretty much everything that we've come to know about this album culminates with this. Doomy melodies, Incantation tremolo riffs, but at a doomy tempo. Even a triplet chug shows up here, but keeping those tremolos intact. Back to oppressive doom, some double time, black metal screams, and also some death roars combined to just add on to the eeriness of the atmosphere, and very terrifying and unsettling. Doomy breakdown, creepy melodies, and faint acoustic guitars to end the song and the album, ending this journey into darkness, so to speak. So, as far as any negatives are concerned, I really couldn't find any, to be honest, because, well, maybe one complaint, and it's maybe a common complaint amongst metal fans who aren't super into, like, the funeral doom side of things. To some people, whenever it gets, like, too slow, it can feel like it drags on a little bit. However, I feel as though that whenever it gets to those slow funeral doom sections, especially when it's right after a fast, blasty tremolo fest, it acts as like you can breathe a little bit. You're giving the songs room to breathe to build up to the next big doomy breakdown or another insane speed fest, and so on and so forth. But the big positive, this album flows really well. It's like every song connects to each other, so it's almost like you're listening to just one long song divided into 4 parts, which is really, really cool. So, overall, I'm going to give this one a 4.5. This is a brilliant death doom, borderline funeral doom album. Basically, if you're a fan of disembowelment, especially when it comes to those almost funeral doom or dark ambient moments, Hooded Menace for like the catchier riffs and the groovy stuff, and Incantation for the faster tremolo blast beat fests, you will dig this album. And of course, if you love Blood Incantation, you might dig this too. Granted, it's not technical and fast and as heavy, but still very good stuff indeed. And now I need to check out the debut. But of course, those are just my thoughts. What did you guys think? Let me know in the comments, and until next time, keep your horns high and your dreams wet. And by the way, real quick before I go, to Paul, congratulations on the wedding. To Erica, happy for you both. The death metal power couple lives. But until next time, peace.